to the next video of the Game Changers course. We welcome back Lisa again. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, well, thanks. Lauren's beautiful
great to be
wife.
here, yeah.
Yep. And we just want to have a look at something that's really going to help us frame how we treat each other, particularly in families and in relationships, also how we want to be treated. I ask people often, what do you think the difference between respect and honour is?
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. Respect is sort of the way you act towards someone,
Yeah.
but maybe honour is why you act.
Oh, I like that.
To maybe the value under why you're treating someone that way.
Right, absolutely.
That's my thought.
Yep. Lauren, you have...
Yeah, I want to add to that. Oh, well, I think Lisa's onto something there.
Yeah.
You know, it is respect is, I guess, is an action, and I'd like to think that honour is something that's more embedded within you. You know, it is. It's an overarching virtue.
Absolutely.
Probably in a hierarchy, it sits probably a little bit above respect.
Above respect, yeah, I agree. And it's interesting that we actually really do need to pull this apart a little bit and have a look at, well, what makes up respect, what makes up honour, so that I guess we all have a bit of a universal understanding of what we're talking about, because I don't know about you guys, but I can think of a few 16, 17-year-old girls that think being wolf whistled at off of a construction site is respect, and I probably wouldn't agree with that.
No, that's right.
So what is respect?
Yeah,
what
is
is
respect?
honour? Well, luckily, you guys have brought with you something that's going to help us explain this to people, and that is your hand.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
I was
So-
wondering where that was.
So I have some questions for you, just in regards to how we use our hand and each finger and what that just means culturally. Yeah, and we'll go through this and see if we can't make heads or tails of what exactly does it mean to be respectful, to be respected, to honour, and to be honoured. So I guess my first question is, how do we use our thumb just in everyday life? How do we use our thumb?
Yeah. Thumbs up.
You've got it that way there.
Yep.
That's probably the most common
Gesture.
gesture.
Yeah,
Or,
sounds like it can be thumbs down.
Thumbs down. Yeah.
Thumbs up.
So it's,
Yeah.
it's like a good job, isn't it?
Yeah.
We use it a lot to say, good job, man.
Well done. I approve.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So, so on the code of honor, you know, on our honor code, or how we're going to express honor, what could we call that?
Feeling good, or just saying well done. It's a word of encouragement, really,
Yeah, it
isn't
is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, encouragement. Do you think encouragement is necessary? Is vital when it comes to honoring someone and feeling honored in a relationship or in a family?
Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah. If you don't feel encouraged, or if you don't feel valued, I mean, and that encouragement is making the other person feel valued.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
validating them as a person.
Right.
And, you know, if you don't feel that it doesn't create a very good relationship.
No, not at all. So encouragement is essential when it comes to relationships. Okay. All right. So what's the next finger on our...
The index finger, of course, can probably do a few things, I guess, but it's pointing like you, or the teacher, or the disciplinarian.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's like, you know, when we're judging people or correcting them or telling them that they're wrong or they've done the wrong thing, we're being disapproving. So can we call that maybe we're not going to judge one another, no judging?
That's right. Mm-hmm. But it can also be, number one.
Number one.
Yeah, well, that's right. It's a number. And I think
Yeah.
you were almost about to put it up against your mouth, Lauren.
Yeah, I was too. Yeah, I suppose I didn't think
You
about.
did that at home.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, she's always doing that.
Yeah.
To me.
I didn't quite.
might do.
Yeah, it's interesting because we often put a shh with it,
Yeah.
but you can do this
Yeah.
and not make a sound, and people will know.
We'll know what you're
will know
talking
that
about.
is. So you know you've got a few different uses for that finger.
But what does that mean? I think it's important for people to understand what that means. It's like maybe one person speaking at a time,
Absolutely.
or more importantly, probably in a relationship, is the listening part
Yeah.
of the relationship.
Absolutely. Listening is such a massive component of, I guess, feeling honoured, feeling respected in a relationship. And it's interesting to notice the difference between how men and how women communicate. I think that's interesting. Often you'll see a group of women. Lisa, you can probably tell us whether or not I'm being sexist or accurate in this depiction, or both. But, I'll see a huddle of women all talking at the same time, all talking over each other, and everyone's capturing all the information and they're commenting and nothing's getting past anyone. Do you notice that with your girlfriends?
Yeah. That can happen at home as well with the family. You can all be around the table and everyone's going talking at the same time, things left, right, and centre. So where do you take it in?
Well, I think, when you see a huddle of men or a group of men talking, I think that wouldn't work. Often guys are saying, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. There's too many people talking. I think that when it comes to guys communicating, we probably need a little less talking over the top of each other in order for it to come in. I'm not saying that how women communicate's wrong by any means.
You're saying we can just listen to more than one thing at once.
The multitasking aspect.
It is a multitasking
I can
aspect.
multitask on that.
Men obviously can't do that. And I've run this program in Indigenous communities as well. And I've heard from one particular person who's worked with Indigenous people that they had a conversation with an Aboriginal elder over something that he had noticed and observed, and I've observed the same thing, and that is it's really common in an Indigenous culture, particularly when there's an elder present, that there's these long pauses of space, of silence in between each thought, each independent thought before the next person will interject. And when queried about this, an Aboriginal elder explained that is really, really important within their culture of respect to allow a good 3 or 4 second pause or gap in between people's trains of thoughts, to allow for reflection, to allow for people to really take the time to think about what was just said before the next thought. And it discourages, really interesting, this elder said, it discourages people thinking about what they have to say next, as opposed to what the person is saying in that moment.
Yeah, it's a great lesson we can learn, isn't it, really?
Absolutely.
Because how often does that happen? You're busy thinking about the question you want to ask next, rather than listening to the response that the person's giving,
I'm sorry, Lauren, what did you say? I was thinking about the next finger on the code of honour.
Oh, we are right. I'll do like my wife doesn't, just rolls her eyes and like, oh no, he's doing that again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Josh, it's a male thing, maybe. I don't know.
No,
I think everybody has that problem.
Yeah.
Sorry, go.
I was just going to say, I think men are notoriously not as good at listening as women maybe are. I think women are fantastic listeners, particularly in their ability to recount everything you've ever said. And guys have moved on and stopped thinking about that. So I think that's interesting. But again, we're getting back to, I guess, feeling heard. And I think that whole notion that you said, Lauren, of one person speaking at a time, and really saying, in this family unit or in this relationship, we are going to prioritize and value listening. I think that's really important.
And it's great when you look at the hand, isn't it, Josh, too? Because the space between these two, the thumb and the index finger, which we've been talking about, is a much bigger space, isn't it?
Than the rest of the hand. Absolutely. And it's the space in between encouraging and listening. So it's like when I encourage myself to listen, or when I encourage others to listen, we can end up in this space where there's equal airtime. So I like to call this space here equal airtime. Okay? It's like what we want to do is we want to have an equal opportunity to all speak.
And that comes back to what Lisa was saying. Everyone then feels validated because of that process. So they're really two great keys there already. What's the middle finger for?
I think we know what the middle finger's for. When we flip someone off, when we rack off you, we're not interested in what you have to say.
It can be quite offensive, can't it?
It's
really,
very offensive.
You can offend people very quickly with that one.
Absolutely.
Doesn't that happen so often in a relationship too, Well, not just with strangers, but even in our own families, the way that we treat each other can be sometimes quite offensive with the language we use, our behaviour.
Yeah.
And so,
It's a put down, isn't it?
it is.
It's a put down. And so, yep, I think that we label this finger no put downs. We're not going to put each other down in this relationship, in this family. We're going to encourage one another. We're going to listen to each other. We're not going to judge each other, and we're not going to put each other down. That's really important.
I like
It's
that.
good. It is very good. Because so often, and we see it in a lot of relationships, that kind of, emotional abuse even too. That can be physical, but it can also be mental and emotional. And
Absolutely.
you can really destroy someone's sense of self-worth
Yeah,
by doing that. And so, let's avoid those put downs.
absolutely. I love it.
There you go.
Next finger.
Oh,
Lisa's an expert on this one.
I was going to say, that's your ring finger, and I don't have mine on today.
Rings on.
That's isolation.
Yeah.
That's our commitment finger, I suppose.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ring on. We get engaged.
Yes.
We get married, and often people put their eternity ring on.
Yeah.
There's different rings. It's a level of ongoing commitment.
It is. A commitment to what though? I always ask people that. Like, commitment to what? I mean, I can be committed to my car, and so I'm not particularly very good in my marriage, and I'm not particularly very good in my family unit. But my car certainly gets a lot of commitment out of me, so I'm committed, aren't I? So I think it's important that we say committed to what.
Lisa?
What?
Oh, so we're so conscious of now listening. I'll say something first, because I think I'll say the male perspective, and Lisa might have the female thing here. Because because as the male, I might think, well, look, I'm committed to the family. I'm out there working hard.
Right.
And I'm putting a roof over the head, and I'm, food on the table and things like that. And I'm sure in a lot of homes there are women that are out there working and doing that too, contributing in that way. And we kind of have our own perception, don't we, of what commitment looks like.
Mm-hmm.
But real commitment really needs some thought, doesn't it? What is that?
And it's in the context of honour as well,
Yeah.
This is in the context of honouring someone. What do we need to be committed to in order that I'm honouring and that the person I'm honouring feels honoured? I think the answer is just committed to each other. We need to be putting people over task. Now, absolutely, I think there's an argument for, well, I am putting you first when I'm working as hard as I am to provide and whatnot. But not kind of invalidating any other feelings of, well, I'd like you to work a little less, I'd like you to make more time for the family. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to put that request up high as well, It's being committed to people over tasks, being committed to each other, and of course being committed to this process, being committed to the honour code, being committed to honour. I think that's really important.
And can I say, commitment too is not just your understanding of commitment. You have to recognise the other person's understanding of commitment.
Absolutely.
And so, if I'm working hard, or I'm, bringing in the money and doing the things that I think demonstrate commitment, that's being committed to myself.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing things that my partner demonstrates commitment, then I'm being committed to a relationship.
Yeah, right. My father-in-law, at my wedding, he said to me to keep mindful the 3 C's that would help my marriage work to his daughter. And he said communication, which we've already spoken about. He said commitment, which we're talking about at the moment. But he said, and the third one he said was compromise. And I think that might be what you're talking about. It's, look, I have my own versions of what this looks like. Yours are quite different to mine. Could we find some way where we both win? Rather than there being this one standout winner and a loser. I think that's how most conflict goes down the road of there being a winner and a loser, as opposed to how can we both win here?
Yeah, that's right. So our commitment has to be to the relationship, I think, not just yourself.
Not just yourself. To each other and to the relationship. Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
Little finger.
Little finger.
Little finger.
There.
I always think of the, pinky promise.
A pinky
maybe
promise.
Too,
We go in
pinky
there.
promise.
Yeah,
There we go. So it follows on from the commitment that too, really,
it
doesn't it?
does, yeah.
Yeah.
It
But,
can also mean privacy and,
Oh,
Lisa.
no, go.
Privacy and confidentiality as well,
Yeah.
in a family or in a marriage. I think, we need to have some sensitivity around what we talk about and what we don't talk about with others. You know, what you're allowed to tell your mum about me, Lisa, or do you know what I'm saying? You know, I think that's really important.
Yep, I agree with that. Having that privacy, that respect. I was going to say your little finger too, a little piano player. This is the smallest finger, the weakest finger, and as a piano player, you really have to work to get that going. So, you know, your pinky is your little finger, your weak, sometimes, you know, the weakest finger.
The weakest link.
You know, in our families, people, or in any relationship, sometimes, you know, we were saying there's a winner and a loser. Yeah. Sometimes your pinky finger might be that loser, and we don't want somebody to feel weaker, or less important, or less involved in that relationship. So we always have to look out for that person who's struggling, maybe. You know, I think that sometimes, you know, the kids are in the schoolyard, and you've got one kid sitting by themselves having lunch and having no friends. It's like, look for that person that is by themselves. Look for that person in a weak situation, and go over and help them. Go over and sit and have lunch with them. Go and just say hi. So it's looking out for that, the
little guy.
Yeah, I was going to say weak person doesn't sound good, but for the little guy, look out for the person who's struggling.
Yeah. The underdog, the little guy.
Absolutely. Yeah. We love that, don't we? Looking out for the underdog, the little guy. I think that's really really important to us as humans. So the interesting thing can be is that's a little bit more proactive, a little bit more intentional. You have to be looking out for, is there anyone struggling? That thought has to occur to you. This is not a response. This is something a little bit more proactive. It's like, okay, who's struggling here? Whether it's, you know, you guys have got a couple of kids, so I assume your dinner table.
Yeah, we've got the 4 kids and 2 of them married now, so it can be quite a gathering of people now.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting, it just made me think about that, because in a lot of different situations, whether it's a family or a classroom or a workplace, that little guy or that underdog can change from time to time.
Yeah.
I think of a classroom where, like, for instance, you go in and you say, well, you know, someone's really good at maths or not very good at maths, they're the underdog there. But as soon as you take them out to the industrial arts room, it's like, man, they're the bomb, and somebody else is the little guy in that situation. And even in a dining room, you were mentioning there before with our family, it's like, well, depending on what the conversation, where it's heading, it's like, well, I'm actually the one that feels a little bit left out of this one, and the next minute I'm the centre and somebody else is the little guy.
Right.
You know? So
it's fluid, it changes, and so it requires us to have some ability to adapt, to be flexible, and that intentionality that I'm actually looking out for, which requires, I guess, a little bit of selflessness, doesn't it? It's like if I'm self-absorbed, just thinking about myself and what I want to contribute to the conversation or the relationship or the meeting at work, then I'm going to miss whether there might be someone else in that room struggling or falling behind that might need a little bit of help.
Yep.
It's a great summary. Those five things, five.
So what have we got? Let's just go through it really quickly before I bring the last bit in. Yeah. So we've got the thumb, which is
encouragement, positivity,
the
encouragement.
The pointing finger,
not condemning or not.
Yeah, no judging.
No judging.
And
also
one person speak at a time.
Yeah, one person speaking at a time.
Listening.
Yeah.
Listening, right. The middle finger, the rude finger.
The offensive one that puts people down.
Don't offend anyone.
Right. We're not putting each other down.
Not put them down.
What's the ring finger?
Commitment.
Commitment to what?
And an ongoing commitment to the relationship, to the people around you. So it involves the community.
Yeah, being committed to others and committed to the code of honor, and of course, finally, the pinky finger, the little finger.
Look out for the weak person.
Look out for the little guy, and
keep your promises. You know, be and respect and honor the people that you are around,
and just some sensitivity to confidentiality and privacy as well. That's fantastic. Well, my last question is, if I was to remove your palm, Lisa, what would happen?
I would not have fingers.
Right. They wouldn't work, certainly, would they?
That's right.
And so likewise, the palm represents being open to give and receive feedback. Okay, so it's an open palm. And so it's about being open to give other people in the relationship, in the family unit, in the work meeting, the team, the classroom, but being willing to give others feedback about how they're going. Was that a put down? Do you maybe need to apologize for that? Or how committed are you being to others and not yourself at the moment? Or are you listening, or are you butting in all the time? So being open to give others feedback, but also really importantly, being open to receive feedback from others. So when someone comes to me and says, Josh, mate, was that very encouraging, or was that a put down? And I need to be open to receive that. And yeah, you're right. I probably wasn't honoring you just then. I'm sorry about that. So that's really important. If it really doesn't do any good to have all of these kind of suggestions on the code of honor if we're not open to receiving feedback. If I'm closed and rigid and no, I don't take advice, I'm not willing to yield, I'm not going to apologize for anything I do wrong, well, what's the point in having the code in the first place? So this really works or doesn't work on the premise, are you willing to be open to give and receive feedback? And so that's really important. And so all together we have this great honor code, this great tool, a strategy for enhancing our relationships, which is interesting because this is the first video in the next module, Lauren. This is the first video in our interpersonal growth module where we're talking about enhancing our relationships. So this tool almost underpins everything else we're going to be doing, because if we try and grow these other areas of relationship while we're not honoring one another, it's not going to work, is it?
It's not going to work. And coming back to where we started right at the beginning, Josh, respect and honour. I think of when you get pulled over by the policeman, and of course you show him respect at the time, and then when you drive down the road, you put your foot down on the floor again, and off you go again. Well, you might have respected him for that moment, but the way I like to put it when I talk to my kids is that, how do you behave when people are watching, and how do you behave when people are not watching?
Right.
And I think honour is that person where their behaviour is consistent.
Yeah, absolutely.
At all times, it becomes that integral part of who you are, the top of the hierarchy, really, isn't it? Of our virtues is honour.
Yeah, and great connection there, Lauren. Bringing it back to our spiritual growth, our character growth, our human spirit, where our virtues reside. What virtues is it going to take to do this? Because as we practice the code of honor, we are strengthening our spirit, our character. So is it going to take humility to apologize? Is it going to take self-awareness to maybe reflect on, well, what in this code do I do instinctively already, and what do I maybe not do that I need to work on?
It's going to require discipline.
It is. Commitment and dedication.
There's a whole number of those virtues that really sit right alongside this.
So we are practicing character growth. We're practicing emotional health as we use this strategy. And that's what I love about this course, Lauren, is that all of these built-in tools that we're teaching you, each of them actually almost automatically help you to grow within your character. So bringing you up out of passive learning now, further up into active learning, we've got something we want you to do. We'd really like you to spend some time having a think about what on this honor code do you already instinctively do in your context. It might be your marriage or your family. It could be your working team, your relationship with your boss, whatever your context is. What do you kind of already do well? What on the code do you maybe struggle to do well? There's some room for improvement there. Think about some strategies. How could you be more committed, or what things could you say to encourage the other person, and really brainstorm this out a bit. Spend a bit of time nutting this out and really considering how is this going to do. Even if you follow that reflection strategy, what, so what, and now what. So what have you just learned, and journal on that for a paragraph. How do you think this is going to go? How do you think this is going to go applying into your context, your marriage, your family? The so what, be a bit more analytical. What's going to work? What are you going to struggle to work with? And then the now what? What are you going to do differently starting right now because you watched this video?
It's like that convergence of information we spoke about too,
Yeah.
isn't it, Josh? You know, we've got the little pipe coming in. That's where we are now. It's going to be a lot of information that we've just shared with you, but we want to make sure what comes out the other end
Yeah.
is a huge growth.
And I was just going to throw in, you've got those 5, the 5 fingers that we've used there. Have a think about the relationship between each finger as well. As a piano player, a great technique I like to use for practicing here. And think about how encouragement can go through all of those.
Absolutely.
And how these values interact with each other.
Yeah, right. And what values is it going to take? In the previous videos, we've given you all of those virtues up on the screen. So it might be a good opportunity just to go back to that spot on that video, or I'll throw it up again for you in a minute, and have a look at the virtues and go, okay, what virtues is it going to take in my human spirit to be successful with this honor code? In particular, which virtues is it going to take that maybe I'm not strong in and I'm going to have to really work on that, because that's where the character growth is.
Yeah, a bit of discipline.
Yeah.
What others?
Well, we got to be committed to
Cooperation.
cooperate with others. We're encouraging. There's self-awareness. There's humility.
There's a heap of them.
Particularly if I'm inviting others to correct me when I make a mistake. We've got to apologize as well. When we make a mistake and someone comes and says, "Hey, that wasn't very nice. It's a bit of a put down. I'm feeling pretty put down by you at the moment." It's important that we apologize. I think as men, we maybe struggle with that a little bit.
Yeah. We do need to be honest with ourselves about that. We need to certainly apply all of this. And look, there's been a lot of great information today. We're handing it over to you now to really implement this into your life, into your family, into your relationships, into your workplace. We want to thank Josh, Lisa. She's been a great contributor to this conversation too today. I want to thank you for coming along and helping us out.
Nice.
But let's work on that together. And we'll see you in our next session.